Starting to learn about evolution, we need to learn about a little bit of the background when it comes to where this all came about. And in evolution, we always relate the person being the instrumental founder of the theory is Charles Darwin. So this section gives you a little background on where evolution, the whole concept and theory came from, and about Charles Darwin. One thing that you need to remember is the definition of evolution. And when it comes to evolution, you have learned back way when we did chapter 1 that evolution means change over time. And this is the process by which modern organisms have descended from ancient organisms. And when we talk about evolution, we're not talking about it happening over 100 years. We're talking about thousands or millions of years as far as change goes. A theory, and you learned this back in chapter 1 also, is a well-supported, testable explanation of phenomena that have occurred in the natural world. So when we talk about the theory of evolution, we're talking about something that has been tested and well supported, and the concept is how things, modern organisms, have then changed over time. If you recall from the video that we watched the past 2 days, humans share the earth with millions of other kinds of organisms of every imaginable shape, size, and habitat. And the definition for this, of course, is biodiversity. If you recall, bio stands for life, and diversity would be the total variety of all organisms. So all the different shapes, colors, organisms that exist. So bio stands for life, and diversity means how different they all are. What scientific explanation can account for the diversity of life? Well, that's where the theory of evolution comes in. The evolutionary theory is a collection of scientific facts, observations, and hypotheses that have all been put together to come up with this particular theory. And we know that it all started with our dear friend, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin contributed more to our understanding of evolution than anyone, and at a very early age 22, he joined the crew of the HMS Beagle. That's the name of the ship. And as a naturalist, that's someone who goes out and observes nature for a 5-year voyage around the world. During Darwin's travels, he made numerous observations and collected evidence that led him to propose a revolutionary hypothesis about the way things change over time. And as you can see, the picture here shows one of the finches. And the finches and their beaks, as the video explained, play a key role in how Darwin came up with this theory of evolution. Darwin came to view every new finding as a piece in an extraordinary puzzle, a scientific explanation for the diversity of life on this planet. And if you put all of these different pieces together, you get the Earth. Darwin knew a great deal about plants and animals that were in his native country. Darwin, of course, came from England. So if you think about where England is, it's similar to the climate, and they have similar animals that we have here in North America if we were to look on a globe as far as its latitude and longitude. He saw far more diversity during his travels, and his travels took him, as the video had said, down towards Ecuador and South America, and way down to the bottom where the Galapagos Islands exist. He began to realize that an enormous number of species inhabit the earth through visiting each of these different continents. Darwin was intrigued by the number of plants and animals that were well suited for their environment. Now you have to remember that this is back in 1831, so there wasn't this technology, there wasn't television. This was just a brand new discovery that he was able to experience and witness. He was impressed by the many ways in which organisms survived and produced their offspring. And he questioned what process led to such a variety of ways of reproducing. So as he was observing all of these different organisms and their different environments, the different vegetation, he wondered why certain animals were only found on specific continents or specific islands. For example, here was a question: why do Argentina and Australia have different animals even though they have similar grassland ecosystems? Why are there no rabbits in Australia and no kangaroos in England? So that was one of the key things, that why does he see certain animals that have, once again, similar ecosystems, but why are those animals not the same in every single place that he visited? Darwin realized that living animals represented just part of the puzzle. And the way that he saw this was through examining fossils. Fossils are the preserved remains of ancient organisms. Fossils resembled organisms that were still alive when Darwin examined the islands. Others looked completely unlike any creature he had ever seen. So his question was, where did these species go? And how are these extinct species related to living species? And those of you that were interested in things like dinosaurs, that lived millions of years ago, the question is, why is the woolly mammoth no longer present here on Earth, but yet we have an elephant? The saber-toothed tiger was something that used to exist, but what happened to the saber-toothed tiger? So these were all questions that he was thinking about, but really didn't have any answers. The Galapagos Islands is what made him start to realize that there were all of these changes going on. While on his voyage around the world aboard the HMS Beagle, Darwin spent more than 1 month observing life on the Galapagos Islands. Despite the islands being very close, what he realized is they had very different climates. Some of the islands were very small and low, meaning they didn't have a lot of mountains. They were more of a grassland type, were very hot, dry, and barren. Others, the higher islands, had greater rainfall and rich vegetation, and they had more of a mountainous type. So why, since the islands sat so close to each other, were they so different, and did they have such a variety of animals and vegetation on them? So there he encountered unique animals such as the famous finches and the famous tortoises. So when we think about the tortoise, the shape of the tortoise shell could be used to identify which island a particular tortoise inhabited, which means that when he visited Pinta Island and looked at that particular tortoise, that had an intermediate shell. When he went over to Isabella Island, that had more of a dome-shaped shell. Over at Hood Island, the tortoise had a saddle-backed shell. So the question was, why are all of these animals so different, even though if you look at the map, the islands are very close together? Well, they realized that Isabella Island was a lush rainforest, so the tortoises had short necks because they didn't have to reach up high to get the vegetation. Hood Island was more of a desert-like, so the tortoises had long necks because they had to reach up higher to get the vegetation. Pinta Island, the tortoises' necks were somewhere in between. So the question was, why? After his voyage, Darwin spent a great deal of time thinking about his findings. Darwin observed that the characteristics of many animals and plants varied noticeably among the different islands of the Galapagos. So he began to wonder if animals living on different islands had once been members of the same species that had developed different characteristics after becoming isolated from one another in order to survive in these different habitats. So at one point in time, all the islands were together. Then the islands split apart, or did the turtles swim to different islands? Really don't know why this happened, but we have the short-necked ones, the long-necked ones, and then the intermediate ones. How did this happen? They had to adapt and they had to change in order to survive.